In this video we're going to install an internal door jamb in this opening and an internal door. Okay, to carry out this task we've got the tools already set out here. What I've got some drill bits and a drill for the holes we need. I've got my rattler and spare bits for putting in screws. I've got measuring gear, tape and rule, a sanding block to do the edges and block plane. I've got a wedge we're going to use on the door to set up the height. I've got a hammer and a wonder bar, see where that comes in, glue bottle, a door block, my Paslode or a nail gun and some 50mm and some 40mm brads, C-type brads. I've got some PPE with my glasses, also got some packers here, just a range of different ones, and my plane and 600mm level and a 2m level. I've got a regular door jamb set here which we're going to put in. This one here, it has been in before, so it's got the strike already cut out, but we'll cut another one out to go through that process. We've got our two styles for our jamb and we've got the head for the jamb. This one here, the head has been left long, so I like those rebated in or trenched into the head, so we'll go through that process. And they also come with stops. We won't actually put those on in this video, we'll do that in the next one when we put the lock in. But they're all part of that general set. Also what we've got is a flush panel door that we're going to be installing. It's a standard one for a house, which is a 820 wide by 2m40 high. And in this case, we're going to use a centered Herline hinge. There's various types here, but we'll use this one today. And just some other options that we could use on it. Over here, we've got a set of 100 by 75. So these are more commercial type hinges. They're 100 this way, 75 that way, butt hinges. We've also got 100 by 100 butt hinges if we need to make it so they're 100 each way. If we need to make it so the door will clear an architrave, then we could use that type of hinge. We've also got some other ones here. We've got a Parliament hinge that could be used. If we had to swing around brickwork, we could do that. And in this packet, I've got a concealed hinge, which we don't see it from the outside. We wouldn't see the knuckle of the hinge. So a couple of options, but we're just going to use the 90mm Herline hinges. In this part of the process, I'm going to prepare the jamb and just check all the sizes. So this here, I've just got a short level here just to check the floor. So we're going to swing off this side here. It's a little bit higher on this side, so I'm going to pack this other side off. So I'll do my two styles for my jamb, the same size. The side the door will swing off will rest on here. I'm going to be allowing for carpet here, so I'll leave a bit of a gap under the door and we can just pack this side up as we put the jamb in, so that won't cause any problem. I'm going to check how plumb these are to start with, and that's fairly good. That's nearly perfect there. And the other side is probably going to be not too bad as well. Not out by too much, a couple of mil, but won't cause any problems. Just going to cut this relatively tight in here and cut that tight there, and then I'll set my trenches out for my head into these sides here. My door width is 820 wide, so what I'm going to do is allow for a 3mm gap on either side, so I'm going to allow this at 826 wide, so it'll have a 3mm gap. What I've done is mark that from the end 826. Now, if I just come in there, it's 55 back the other way, so I'm just going to divide that in two, which is going to be 27.5, and that's how far I'll come in either side. And now I'll just check that to make sure it's right on my 826, which it is. Nice sharp pencil gets that correct. And that's where I'm going to do my trench. Just using the offcut that I had from the head. This is where the trench is going to be, and we'll do it about 6mm deep, just to suit, as long as it covers the quirk that we're going to put around the architrave, that's all we're worried about. Okay, it's perfect. Let me just clean that out a little bit, just make sure it's all flat. What I'll do now is work out the length of my stiles for the door. So it's a mental calculation. I've got the depth of my cut here. I've got a little bit under the 6mm actually, the way that's worked out. It's 5mm. So I'm just going to add up a couple of numbers to get the length of the door. So 5mm for my rebate into the door, my trenching, 3mm for my gap at the top, 2 metres and 40 for my door, and we are going to allow for 12mm carpet plus a 7mm gap underneath it. And so therefore I'm going to allow about 19mm there for my carpet. 2 metres and 67 is what I'll cut my stiles out for the door. The glue on this joint here means that when we put our architraves on, it stops everything moving that little bit and opening up the gaps in it. What I'm also doing is making sure the inside's nice and tight as well. The way I've put these around, these have got a slight slope on the back of the jamb here, and that's to make it so when you put the architraves on the outside, if there's a slight setback on your plaster, then the architraves can rest back a little bit and they won't leave a gap at the front of the architraves. So just make sure you get it so that slope is away from the inside where the door is going to be. What I want to do now, I'll just make sure that this is the side the hinges are going to go on. So I want to centre that at the bottom and just make sure that where my skirting is going to butt into it after the architraves are on, I've got to make sure that they're sitting nice in the centre. So I've got that centred now, and I'm just going to put a single pin in here just to hold it, but we're going to come back and pack that out and just put a single screw, couple of screws up there. I'll plumb that up. Okay, so that's sitting plumb there. I'm going to put another one in the top there just to hold it. That's sitting nice and plumb where it is. That's actually a really nice straight jamb, that hardwood jamb. So let's put one in the middle there. I fluked that. That's good there. We get this in the centre here. It's just got to come up a fraction. I think I can prise it up with a chisel afterwards, so I'm just going to leave that, put a pin in there. What I'm doing now is just looking through my door jamb and making sure the two jambs are lining up perfectly. Okay, I'm happy with that. Still sitting right nicely between the bubble, and that's all nice and straight. Put the screws in roughly at the same height where the hinge is going to be. So this here's, I put a hinge 150 down from the top, 200 up from the bottom. It's out of habit as much as anything. All the fixings are in the centre of the jamb. And so when we put the stop on, you don't see any of that. What I'm doing now, I'm going to set up, I always like to fit the door in the opening before putting the hinges on. And so in order to do that, I've just got some 50mm bullet head nails, and I'm going to put those back behind the door. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit further back. So they're about 40mm back. The holes will be covered by the door stops, and I'll put 4 in, 2 on each side. I can pull those out afterwards. I've got a wedge here. I'll put that under the door. I use a combination of a wedge and a wonder bar just to lift the door up. So I'll put this in readiness and then I'll lift the door in position. Before we do though, we just look at what the door is. I've got a sticker on here. This sticker here is an indication of which side we have to fit the lock on. In behind here there's a block. And if I put that block on the wrong side, then it means that when I put the lock in, it squeezes the face of the door together and it looks pretty awful. So we have to make sure we get that on the right side of the door. So the hinges have to go on this side. If for some reason we lose that sticker and we need to check it, we should be able to just hear that, so I can tell that's where the lock block is in the centre of the door. That very well. I'm happy with that gap. I said I was going to go 150 down from the top where my hinge is. So I'm just going to put a mark 150 down and transfer that across onto the door and the jamb. You see it's a little bit tight here. We've only got a couple of pins in. So once we start fitting this side, I'll just prise it up and put a packer to make it so this is nice and even across the top. What I use to hold the door while I'm doing it, I use a lock block, just a bit of off-cutter timber. I like to use a bit of 90 by 45, and I'll cut the same material out of this, and I just go half the depth, so it's 45 deep. It goes under the end. I'm right-handed, so I've cut it so the wedge will go in from the right, and that holds the door nice and firm while I fit it. I'm not sure how these hinges will work. Some are offset so you don't need to back them off. When I talk about backing off, it's putting an angle on the edge of the door so my hinges don't bind. So I don't know if these will need it or not. I can't really feel it. They're a fairly cheap hinge that I've got here. But what I'm going to do is back it off anyway, just to go through that process. It's a relatively simple process. I'm going to use my planer, and I'm also going to use a cable tie. Now this cable tie is about 3/4 of a millimetre thick. Put that cable tie under the front of the planer, plane the length of the door while that's under it, and it will just give me a nice even backing off all the way along the door. It's cutting a bit deeper, so I'll just wind that back off a little bit. Wind it back to 1/2 mil. Okay, that's perfect there. I'll just sand that little bit out when we're doing that. Just going right across, but not quite touching that. That's just how I want it. Okay, I'll go all the way through now. Just be careful. I just tuck my fingers under the very front corner of the planer there, but very careful. The blades are not very far back there, so you've just got to be really careful that you don't... They normally say only put your hands on the top. This would be the only time I'd rest them under that front corner there just to hold this packer under here. What I'll do now, I've got machine marks in there and I've got a square edge on that back. So I'm just going to get my sanding block and just clean up that edge. What I'm going to do now is set up the bottom hinge here. I said I'd do it 200 mil, so there it is there on that position. I've never used these hinges before, but I want to put it this side here with this little plate in the middle of the door, but it's not a very good edge here to hold it square. And if you have the ones that are fully offset, I'd normally pack it off the door, because if you don't pack it out about 1 millimetre, when you open the door, the knuckle beside it will rub on the door as it opens, and it will squeak. So we don't want that to happen. I don't know if these are going to be a problem or not. I don't think it will, because it doesn't seem as tight when you turn it over. What I'm going to do is, I want it that way up, but I'm going to drill these this way just because it can sit nicely against that edge there. And I'm just going to drill that right in the centre. Okay, I've got those. We'll do the ones at the top. Now I'll take the door over the opening and screw it in place. The reason I put the mark on here and put the door in the opening, aside from just making sure everything was going to work, is that now I can line up the same mark that I've got on the top of my hinge here with the mark I've got here. Now I just pre-drill that before I put it in. And I do the bottom one, I'll only put one hole in, I won't do the whole lot. If I get it slightly wrong, then I can make an adjustment. So I only put the one in there for now. Before I put any more screws in, I'm just going to shut the door and just make sure I'm happy with the gap at the top. It could come down just a fraction. It's a little bit tight in here. So therefore I'll just drop that down. So I'll just close it and see how it fits. Nice even gap down our hinge side. We've got a 3mm gap here at the top, but it's probably down to about a 6 or 7mm gap down the bottom here. So this is now where we're going to pack it out. So we've got a nice even gap all the way down the lock side. Okay. Gap was a little bit tight at the top on this side. So I've got some 0.6 Laminex. I'm just going to prise this side up a little bit and just pack that up. And we'll check the top now to see if we're happy with the gap, and that looks good. I'm now going to prise off where I've put the pins in until I'm happy that they're out at the right thickness. Okay, that looks pretty even all the way there now. Okay, we've got that now to it's a nice even 3mm gap. Now I'm going to pack that off and put a couple of screws in it to finish it off. Also closes without binding on here, which is where we back that door off. Sometimes if we don't back it off, it'll push the door, it'll want to bounce back open again. So because we cut the back off this door, it sits there nicely now without trying to bounce back out. So that's how you fit an internal door jamb with a door attached to it. Thanks.